Hello, this is Gerald Van. All the letters can be made more conscious what they really mean. So far, most scholars think that there is no connection of meaningfulness to letters simply because you cannot derive them to a fixed quality all the time because they combine, and that's the way how it is described. If you have a position somewhere, for instance, on top of something, but you start at the bottom, then it's still at the bottom. You mean it is describing something, you have to know what it describes. Once you know what it describes, you know how it is combined. And the method that I developed here is based upon actually what is dealt with in letters, how quickly we hear them. If we hear them very quickly, they are also at very fixed positions. If we hear them in a way like it's moving somewhere, our attention is also moving somewhere. It is about moving somewhere. Or certain sounds are really more like resonances in the background, and we deal with them accordingly. That's the way how we deal with letters and how we combine them. A lot of letters you can derive also to a description that describes the form. Of course, it will not be the case for abstract words, and they will also be a bit more difficult at times to interpret because we want to have forms in our mind. We want to describe things with forms, with something that is quite fixed. Although all these letters are not always describing the fixed things, they're also describing different things that we need for them to describe these things. Let's have an example that is more an abstract word. So how do we combine letters that usually are about focuses that also have a reference to a position or a direction and so on, which sounds quite physical. So, but for an abstract word, what will happen then if we combine these things? Will it be really then about a focus that can still be described with a form or not? And this is a very good example with think. We have the theory there resumed at the right. You have in front of you here these two figures where you have where you can put the positions of a lot of letters there and realize why we think different with them. And as soon as we have these letters, we automatically associate them with the area in which they are, and we associate the things differently as well. But let's go to think. So T is a position of the first category, which tries to find out a very fixed position. So we think we also start with a fixed, with finding as much as we can a fixed position. It's in my scheme. It's at that point over there. It's just somewhere in the vertical. It can be up. It can be if you start down. Of course, it can be down. That's the same thing as well. It is about a position, a little bit away from the surface, a bit away from the center, but it uses it as a centering point in such a way that you can define a really clear position. That's what T is about. It builds up the logic. If you have all the letters, I can build up the letter, how it goes from A to T to K, and it's always the next step in logic. The next step in logic is about finding a position in space where you can say, okay, from this position I can define not just the position but also what it is and so on. So that's the mindset of T, and you can have it with a vertical and a horizontal combined and find that position. Whether A is a horizontal and T is a vertical, this is the next position, horizontal and vertical combined, a little bit up because the next point is in the logic is vertical, also a little bit more focus upon the vertical, and I find the position. That's the position where you start to think with all the words that have the T in them. Combined then, of course, with H and E, which you can already see in the position in my scheme of order. In the third order, it is the H and the I are visible already there. But I will, of course, describe now what is the third category. The third category are the sounds that work in the background. Certain sounds like s, they go in the background, or the R is working in the background. We also think in that way with these sounds They work in the background, and yeah, at a certain point we can use them. We can say, okay, here is there. We make a connection to that. We can describe them, and they have a certain field of associations for them, which I will describe with the H and the E as well. But in general, it's all these things that work in the background. So also the thinking works in the background. It's you try to have a position, try to have a definition while using this thinking in the background. It still fits in that way. E is finding actually from the general rules in the background. I will find an application that I will say, okay, here I can find something that will fit at a certain moment and at a certain place via a definition that I will find at that point. So that's the E. So they have already T, H and E at this point. What's now the difficulty if you want to focus upon forms? The H and the E actually not just are away there at the background and so on, and you just put them there and make a connection. No, they have to make a connection from its order of positions, and the order of positions starts actually from T. What's now a problem if you want to imagine it? What am I really seeing in this word? What am I describing in this word? The T actually is just focusing upon one point, which is resuming one point, and in that one point I can find my positioning, my definition. Followed up by H and E is actually the frame of H, and the E, the applied frame, will go towards that point. So it is really focusing upon that point and within that point. So it's almost smaller than the physical point, which you cannot imagine as a form. But a thinking, of course, you can imagine it's concentrating upon a point, and there within that that idea of that point, I have to have a frame of thought. Indeed, a frame of thought where I will apply something that what I'm realizing there, what is realized. It becomes abstract, because how can you put that into a form? It's more difficult. It's within that point I will make a frame of thought, actually, and that's what thinking is, of course. And within that frame of thought, I will continue with the letter N and K. N, where is that in the positions of my system? It's in the second category. It's about directions. It's about finding directions, finding movements, finding what is changing at a certain point. With the letter N, it means what is changing in its material, where I can start from, where can I start from, and where is something actually moving towards something else. What is changing actually into the physical realm there as well? What can I distinct there that might go to a different direction, a different purpose, and so on? That's all associated with N for a certain reason. I can build that logic up why it is so, but that's how it is associated from that position. So we will add that position at that point within that frame of thought, and it actually says like, yes, I want to give it direction. I want to see what directions it will get, or how many directions I can find from there, or how many in this way still applications as well. Where can I find differences and so on? At a certain point, I'll focus upon that idea. And the K at the end is from the first category, is about the starting distinctions. But there are three kinds of starting distinctions: the A, the T, and the K. T is really that position where you have try to find a certainty. K is actually also focusing upon giving it limits. The uncertainty is dealt with, so it also says like, okay, here I have to limit my focus. It can go up until there and not further. So I have to realize within K, from what I want to take out with N, that what I can use or what I cannot use. So that's equally important. What is really the limit in this way also of my thinking? That's the way of thinking as well. Thinking is not broadening my my possibilities of thinking. No, it is really much more focused upon where do I have to put my limits. That's the conclusion. That's the way how thinking works. It's a kind of negative idea as well of how we build up with thinking. Thinking is limiting, putting definitions and putting a limit to definitions. Otherwise it doesn't work. It's not realizing something. It's not forming something. It's not creating something. No, thinking is really seeing how far you can go and limit it. The more you succeed in limiting it, the better you are able to think. That's the way how thinking works. The inspiration, what you need to do for thinking, is in the word with its letter combinations. And that's what I recognize here, and that's how I describe it here. And that's also its reality. And that's what the push is in words. In the push of words is also the combinations of letters, which tells you how to perform the realization of the word well. So in these combinations, it's best that you perform it according to the letter combinations and what they mean and how you should deal with it and how they lead you towards a certain way of thinking as well. That's all in the words, even with a capital, how this works also for you and how this also needs to work for you to inspire you. Every word has a possibility of inspiring you in a certain limited way, how it is intended. If you want to prepare yourself better, you can have a couple of books that can be a guidance to get used to the whole system before you can even start with it. Okay, thanks again for watching. There's a website, there's a Facebook page, there's this YouTube channel and so on. You're welcome to visit me next time. Thanks again for watching. Bye.